Hey guys, Steven Martinez with The American Dream. I just want to say a big thanks to all our supporters and fans. It's because of you guys that we're able to keep growing. Having said that, please don't forget to follow and subscribe. It means a lot to us. That's what helps us keep growing. And also, I hope you guys enjoy the next episode. Hey guys, welcome back to The American Dream podcast. I'm here with a very special guest, Patrick Fingles, CEO and founder of Leap. Thanks for coming, brother.
Thanks for having me, man.
I know we had a phenomenal conversation before we just started. It's so good that JJ was like, I had to speed it up. But so for people who don't know Patrick, before we get into the whole awesome stuff that we were talking about, content marketing, branding, Leap, and the roofing company, tell us a little bit about Patrick, you know, from your upbringing to where you are now.
Yeah. So I was about 20 years old, and I had a job just like anybody else. I was delivering packages, and I got my buddy was working at this place where he sold windows, in-home window sales. He's like, "You'd be great at it, man. Come on down." And
Yeah.
I went down, and I was really good at it. It was a large company. They had like 5 offices over a few states. Still in business today.
Was it door to door or installation?
They used canvassers, but it was a retail. It was retail, so they would have canvassers, go to the door, and then the sales reps would go out and sell.
Got it.
So that's what I did, and I just had a knack for it, just could relate to people when I got in the house. I was young, smiled, and could get deals done, and I had a lot of success there. And then we started, so we took that business kind of model and spun it out and started my own company. It's called New Look Home Design. I think it was about 2003 we started that, and that business grew exponentially. We grew to 5 states, Mid-Atlantic, Maryland, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Delaware, New Jersey, and the district makes 6. But and we sold mostly windows and siding until 2008. And then we added roofing because windows and sidings kind of dried up. And we scaled that business to $40 million was like our best year ever. We had about 250 employees at the height of it. And then somewhere around 2012, 2013, we really tried to start working on kind of redefining us. We had graduated from kind of knocking on doors. We still did it, but we had graduated to television and radio, and we really wanted to cut through the mustard of what we were saying. I didn't want to say the same things that every other ad on Channel 5 News was saying in the morning, or Good Morning America, which is like a rotation of home improvement contractors.
Yeah, they are.
So I started thinking about what homeowners wanted, and what I found out was they really wanted, they like technology. We'll talk more about that later, but so we started working on an application to kind of help the business run smoother and bring the homeowner into the technology, right? To make it feel like everything else that you purchase when you go to a store. Like, we wanted home improvements to have that same feeling. If you were buying a roof or windows, it should feel like you're going to the store and checking out at a register. So we wanted to create that environment, and so we started working on that product just for us. And then in 2017, it's a funny story. What would happen is, we had, 50, 60 sales reps, and we had attrition. They would leave. They would get recruited by other places. They would go, the leads are better over there.
Yeah.
They would go to my competitors, and then my competitors were calling me being like, "Hey man, we'll keep hiring your people. They don't even know how to measure a roof, or they don't even know how to do anything.
Yeah.
They said you have some technology. What are you using?" And I was always like, I totally believe in a rising tide raises all ships. So I was always happy to share. I wasn't one of these guys that kept everything cloak and dagger.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh man, we built this tool," and they're like, "Will you sell it? Will you sell it? Will you sell it?" And I was like, no. And I beat them all for a while. And then one of the companies that was in Maryland that we were pretty close with was like, "I'll give you $15,000 if you give me it." And I was like, "All right, I'll rip you off a copy for 15 grand. So I gave him a copy, and that was the kind of beginning of the end. So then that company, which is Leap today, which a lot of people know, has grown tremendously and is one of the leading technologies in the space. And so I have since sold my roofing company, like many others have. I also sold a percentage of the software company to private equity too. So I've dealt with private equity on both sides of the spectrum. And, that's kind of my story. I've learned a tremendous amount through running that business myself, as well as, now I get to interact with so many different partners and so many customers. And, when you're technology company, you kind of get to see inside of their business, not from sensitive information, but just, see how they operate, how they structure the technology. Well, you get to interact with a lot of the executives within those companies and understand their challenges and what they're trying to overcome. And so I don't know whether I've learned more as being a remodeler for 20 years or in the last 7 years being a software CEO, because I get so much exposure to so many contractors on the software side.
So when you opened your home service company for the first time, how old were you?
I think I was 24.
24 years old?
24 years old.
And at the peak of it, you had how many employees at?
250.
So what's the kind of the secret sauce there because that's, you say it, make it sound like it's easier said than done, but that's very difficult.
I'm a huge fan of greenfield, so expansion.
Okay.
That's what we really grow on. And I have a I don't know what you call it, a mantra. My grandfather told it to me. It's called play business.
Play business.
Play business. And so what play business means is like, there's some people that are like, we're not a big company, or we're not sophisticated. We're not, we ain't trying to be like one of these big companies. Well, I learned that I wanted to be a businessman. Like I would have like, we'd be like, all right, board meeting. It's like 3 people sitting around a table this big. The company's got 7 people in it, but we're gonna have a board meeting. Or sales meeting. It'd be like, my one sales guy,
your cousin,
right? It's like Chad. He's like, by the way, it's just the 2 of us. I was like, we're gonna role play. So it's like I knew like we had P&Ls and budgets, and I wanted to have like, everything I saw at the company that I kind of worked at, not like their information and taking it, but like how a business is supposed to run.
Yeah.
So I call that play business. It doesn't matter how big your business is, you can always play like it's bigger than it is. And I think that when you play business, that starts to become business. So like, I was like, the big companies have multiple states. We got to expand. Our first expansion was into Parkville from Maryland. It was 20 miles away from our core office, which was 800 square feet. And then we went and opened another office that was in a basement that was 600 square feet. And we're like, we got 2 offices. I was playing business. I just wanted to say I had 2 offices. But that was like the starting point of it. It was like, all right. And then we eventually closed that office and we're like, all right, let's open an office in another state. And so it grows up like that. So I think greenfield, playing business, and then I think it's culture. I think it's all culture. That's such a big word and it's hard to understand. But I think people that can understand. It's what makes good salespeople. The best salespeople are very social aware. They're very self-aware. They might not seem like it because can be very vain or arrogant. But like when you're in somebody's home, that vain, arrogant person becomes very kind of humble. So they know how to control that. So I think I think that's the same thing that drives culture. Is, our office. I mean, we were in the heydays there when we were scaling, and we were brothers. We'd lay down on railroad tracks for each other. I mean, the employees. I mean, it was like our wives thought we were in a cult. They thought we were lunatics, right? Like we did everything together. I didn't even have friends for 10 years. I had the people that worked for me, and we did everything together. So I think culture, expanding the business. If you're making $5 million in one state. Or let's say it's Texas, and if you're in one market in Texas, you got to take that 5 to 10 million. That's hard to do in the same market. You can just go open another market, replicate everything you have, and you're going to get some growth. So I like greenfield.
So that's a good point too. I've heard the saying. What was it? It was, teach your people so they can leave you, but treat them so they stay. So I think company culture is a big deal as well. I agree on that. Now talk to me about the art of replication for a second, because I think a lot of people have tried to expand different cities, different states, and it's easier said than done because, you can have a good HQ, but then when it comes to actually replicating it so where it's self-sufficient and self-run, it's a whole different animal. How'd you perfect that?
You don't replicate it. There's things of it you replicate. You can replicate your contracts, but you can't replicate your sales pitch because markets are different. The way you sell in Charlotte is not the way you sell in Baltimore.
Really?
Yeah, it's 2 different ICPs down there. So I think what people do is if you build a $5 million office in one state, then you go and you say, I'm going to go replicate in another state, and you're like, I'm going to recreate another $5 million office. The reason greenfield works is like, let's say we do $5 million in one state, and let's say we decide that we're going to try to do $7 million.
Yeah.
there's no guarantee that you do $7 million. You actually could do $4.5 million the next year because maybe the market changes or something like that. Maybe there's less storms. Like maybe you hired more people, you spent more ad dollars, but you actually did less volume. So let's say you take the other path and you say, I'm doing $5 million in this state. I'm going to go open another market. If that market does $1, well, that's $1 more than you had. If the market does $1 million, well, it's $1 million more than you had. So I think like when you look at like all the companies that have like really successfully greenfield, if you look at like a Window Nation, who I'm really close friends with, or you look at like Mad City, companies that have, or a West Shore that have 50 offices across the country at this point in time, dude, they'll have an office in one market that does $30 million, then they'll have an office that does $2 million, but they have 10 of them. So I think it's like, I think that's the problem is like, you try to recreate the exact same thing in the next market. That doesn't mean it runs like, yes, there's economy of scale and efficiencies. But like, maybe you have to sell a different product in that market, right? Maybe it's not a certainty market, it's a GAF market, or, maybe it's a terracotta market. So you have to be adaptable to a degree. And I think a lot of people get stuck on trying to replicate this. I think the other big mistake that people make is they want this to be perfect before they add this. Why would we expand if this is like we got all these problems and shit going on in this core business?
Yeah.
Guess what? You're always going to have that. It's never well-oiled. Because like as soon as like your number one guy walks out the door, you're in crisis again.
Yeah.
So like, do you want one office that maybe is running good sometimes and running crappy the other times? Or do you want two offices that are maybe running good sometimes and running crappy the other time? So I think that's the other thing is people like they stop, like the best companies that really master greenfield and growth, like they're expanding. If you went and looked at the businesses that they already had, you'd be like, are you crazy that you're expanding? You need to fix what's right in front of you. And they're like, no, we need growth at all costs. And private equity companies that are acquiring these companies, that's what they want, growth at all costs. When they start peeling back the layers of the onions and looking at these businesses, man, half of them are a mess. It's bananas, but they're still buying them because of growth. So like if you do $5 million this year, the number one way to do $6 million is to try to add another dollar in another market. Then the next year you got to add another market, and it becomes like this cyclical thing that you have to keep doing. You know?
So one of the things that I think as well when you're opening up different offices in different areas, so you can statistically look at the target audience and be like, okay, I understand the target, how to provide that product or service specifically to them. I've studied it, this and that. But talk to me about the courage behind that, because that's ballsy, man, to just like not even care. Like, I know it's not perfect, but let's go here, let's go there, let's go there.
It's tiger teams is the best way to do it. You need two guys. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm not going to name logos, but I know companies that are doing $150 million in sales annually, and they have markets that have 4 employees in them.
Wow.
And I'm several of them.
Yeah.
And like if it becomes 12 employees, great. If it becomes 4, it's a cost exercise. I mean, what does a little office cost? $2,000, right? Like how much is the lease for the place we're in right now, right? It's like a little office costs you $2,000. You need an office manager, a project manager, and a salesperson. Like that's the fundamental 3-man team. Yeah. So I think what a lot of the companies that do successfully is that's like a promotion. I mean, if you're hiring young salespeople that are good, that want to grow within your business, then hopefully they'll move for you. That's what we did.
So talk to me about the whole branding and credibility side of as you were building that home service company to where you had 250 employees. What made you look at the competition differently? Because you said you saw competitors doing the same stuff over and over, but what gave you that switch to be like, let's do it that way?
It was, God, what's that show? Mad Men. You ever watch Mad Men?
No.
I got a great story. Mad Men, it's about an advertising agency.
Okay.
And I was watching this episode, and there was a guy, and they were trying to, the advertising agency was pitching a cigarette company, like Philip Morris, right? Okay. On their ads, right? And so the cigarette company was like, he says this, he's like, they're sitting there, and it's a great scene. He's in the room, and he says to him, he's like, tell me about, like, the ad guy's like, tell me about, like, how do you make a cigarette? He's like, well, we grow the tobacco, then we cut it, then we hang it. Our tobacco's grown from this, and it's only grown in these regions, and we hang it. And he's like, then we toast it, and then we grind it up. And he's like, wait a second, you what? He's like, yeah, then we toast it. And he's like, toast it? He's like, yeah, you have to kind of like bake it at a low heat to pull all the moisture out, and it gives it like a nutty flavor. And when you grind it up, we make the cigarette, you know? And he was like, well, that's pretty unique. And he was like, yeah, but everybody toasts it. Like, if you make cigarettes, you toast your tobacco. And he's like, yeah, but not everybody says it. So like the slogan for the cigarette company becomes, you know, XYZ cigarettes, it's toasted. You know? And so I saw that, and I was like thinking about my experience, and I was like, you know, if you looked at the ads that we were running, everybody says the same thing.
Yeah.
Licensed, insured, lifetime warranty, best service, 50% off, 20% off, buy one, get one.
Yeah.
Right? Like everybody says the same stuff. Like all their promises were the same. So I started looking at like, what can we do differently? And I went and I hired this advertising agency called Elmwood up in New York. And they verified this, and when they had us, we went up to New York, we took the train up, we came into this room. I don't know if they had interns do it or what. I got a picture of it, and it's one of the presentations I give. It's actually in it. And what they had done is they had taken everything that they could find on us plus 5 of our competitors in the market, and they printed it out on sheets of paper and they glued it to all the walls.
Yeah. And
then what they did is they actually had people go around with magic marker and Post-it notes, and they covered all the logos. And they like scratched out if they saw anything that was like brand unique. So when you walked in, all you saw was pictures of windows and siding houses and trucks and Better Business Bureau logos. And there were markers on the table, and they're like, check the ones that are yours.
That's insane.
And I was like, holy crap. And I saw the same lady, and I was like, I know that lady's on our website, but I don't know that lady, it's the same lady, but you know, like a stock photo of like a lady kissing her baby, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, and so we did that, and they were like, so we have to find out like what's your differentiator, you know?
What sets you apart. Yeah.
What sets you apart. And it's not that you have better service or you pay your guys more, you got a better sales pitch. It's not. Like homeowners don't give a crap about that, right? So like what sets you apart? So one of the things that set us apart was like the technology that we used. You know? So like our radio ads started becoming I would literally go on TV. You can go on Google or whatever, and you Google New Look and go to the YouTube. You'll see me standing there. I don't own the company anymore, but they, for brand equity, they still keep those videos up or whatever SEO purposes. And I would have I would get an extra, and he would come out and he'd be like a contractor, and I'd give him like a clipboard, and he would write like $10,000 on it in big red. And I'd have them stand there and like wave it, and I'd walk out and I'd be like, how come every time a contractor comes out to your house, they give you an estimate? They give you a price of like $10,000.
Yeah.
Why is it always so vague and generalized? You know? And then I'd keep walking, and then I'd have another extra, and it'd be like a lady. And I'd be like, at New Look, we use technology to give you line by line pricing, total price transparency. You see exactly what you're paying for, labor and materials. And it's not $10,000, it's $11,142. And I would be like, and so like it became like, that's what we were selling.
The transparency behind the brand, like the cigarette.
Correct. Like it was like we were trying to like sell something different. Like we would put like, we used like Eagle Views and hovers.
Yep.
Like nobody, they'll put an Eagle View logo on their website, but they put a hover logo on their website. Hover loved us because I would go on the TV. And I would be like, I'd have a guy, give him a shingle board. He'd be standing there. I'd be like, picking out, a big roof based on a sample color size this big is tough to do. It's like painting a room and being like, I hate it. Imagine doing that with your roof.
Yeah.
At New Look, and then like in a bubble, the hover would pop up. I'd be we give you a full 3D rendering. So you know exactly what your roof is going to look like before you ever sign the contract. And then I would do it with contracts too. I would be like, how come, your contracts are always like new roof, it's going to be good, lifetime warranty. At New Look, we spell everything out. You see every detail. So there is no miscommunications. And so like, it was just like this constant ring of that, and the slogan became, we make roofing easy.
I like that.
And, I just said, and I finally got to a place where I literally started saying like, you don't have to get 3 estimates. I'd be like, how come with contracting you always have to get 3 estimates? I mean, we've convinced ourselves, and I would talk as consumer all the time.
Yeah.
I'd be like, we've convinced ourselves that we like to get 3 estimates. I was like, do you want to have to go to 3 grocery stores to get a gallon of milk?
That's a good point.
You want to go to 3 stores to get a pair of pants that fits? Like, no. And I was like, with roofing, you should have enough trust and transparency to be able to make a decision and save yourself time. You know, we make roofing easy, you know, and so that became like our calling card, and we were using the technology to do that, you know.
So as you were building and you had the brand, the credibility, the slogan to back that up, once you shifted into Leap, being in both industries, which is really night and day, being from construction to technology, which one do you prefer? What's easier?
Man, I love roofing, you know.
Yeah.
I know how to do it, and I know how to do it well. I do. I love software. You know, software has its residual. You know, one of the tough things about home improvements is every month starts at zero.
Yeah, true.
You know, I think some people are having success with like service plans and stuff like that a little bit, but they're just starting to try to figure that out. But like with software, everything we sold in January we keep in February, and everything we sell in February adds to what we sold in January. So it's like this big giant snowball, and that's nice because you're like, even if we don't sell $1 this month, we know we're going to do X.
Yeah.
Because it's the last 7 years, all those jobs, all that stuff that we've sold, and that's that residual income. So I really like the element of that. I love roofing because in software is big, it's vast.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's
You
always
know, I
constantly
mean, you're a
changing, too.
small fish in a big pond, even if you're a pretty big fish like Leap is. You know, in roofing, the community feels so much smaller. Like when you go to a top 500 conference or you go to IRE, I find myself connecting more with the other roofers that are my customers and wanting to spend time with them and high five them and go to dinner with them and talk about roofing more than I am talking with partners, you know, about software. So it's close. Both have their advantages. I like the smallness of the construction industry, and I love the idea that you can take a guy that, you know, had, you know, 2 semesters at community college and make him a millionaire. Like I think that that's awesome, you know. And like, so I just, you know, I just went to the International Roofing Expo, and like I got on a plane, and like 80% of the people flying out of Dulles that day were roofers.
Really?
And like on that plane, you know, because my flight was going to, I think it was where was IRA? Was it in Texas? Yeah, it was in San Antonio.
IRA was in San Antonio.
Yep, San Antonio. So it was in San Antonio. So like, you know, the direct flight from Dulles, which is mid-Atlantic, which is a massive market.
Yeah.
You know, it's like 70% of the people were roofers. And it was like, there was this testosterone in the air on the plane.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what
I was
you
like,
mean.
if this thing crashes, we're just going to get it and walk out.
Yeah,
like, you know, it's going to be like that plane, like, that flipped upside down and like people were like trying to grab your luggage and crap.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, you can't, nothing's going to stop this plane, right? And I love that. You know, like you don't necessarily get that at a software conference. You know?
Talk to me about a few key traits that you would say, because clearly you've been successful in both industries, which is incredible. So what are key traits that a leader needs to take themselves to that next level?
It's funny, man. You know, I try to be humble. I really do. But like one of the things, I'm a pretty good speaker, right? So I just went and spoke for Northwestern Mutual, which is like a very large investment banking and life insurance firm about culture. And everybody always says you're such a good speaker. I'm going to tell you, I believe that it's honesty, because like, you know, when I'm on stage, I just think I say things that other people won't say.
Just authentic about it.
Yeah, just, you know, I don't mind being honest. Like if somebody's nodding out in the front, like I call them out when I'm up there, right? I never try to be like fake and like try to be like loud or raise my voice or like walk around. I story tell. And I think like with my employees, it was like that authenticness. Like we would call you out. Like we didn't mind awkward conversations in the middle of the boardroom, you know, or in the middle of the sales meeting or whatever. And it was just like, it was always done through the lens of a comedic view or happiness, right? Like it was a boiler room, man. We make fun of you or whatever. And so I think it's that directness. One of our brand values at Leap is confident and honest. So, you know, I think honesty is underrated. That's such a simple answer. It's like, what makes a good culture? Be honest. When I say be honest, I'm like, you're in a meeting and like your number one sales guy's like being like your typical number one sales guy. And like the sales manager just kind of sits there and is like, you know, gives them the attaboys or whatever. But the rest of the group is like tired of being in the sales meetings with the number one sales guy like doing this or something like that. The difference at like in an honest organization, I'd be like, hey, listen, guys, I know you're all sick and tired of hearing him. You know, but that's what you get when you're the number one guy. He'd be sitting right there.
Yeah.
Like, you know, so it was that like see something, say something type attitude. And I think people often say what they think is supposed to be heard instead of what needs to be heard. And I think they hear what they want to hear instead of what needs to be heard, right? Like,
yes.
So I know that's weird and like very philosophical, but I think that's it, man. Just be honest, you know, boldly honest. And the more awkward, like I love meetings where there was like a super awkward conversation, like somebody would have an outburst. And like a lot of people, I've been in a lot of meetings where people just push through that.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh, time out. We got an outburst on our hands.
Yeah.
Mike, we ain't moving forward till you sit down, settle down. We're all going to talk about how we felt about what Mike just did or said.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Be like, we're staying. That's it, man.
Yeah.
Outburst. You know, and that's how, like, a lot of people would just move forward. They'd pull Mike aside afterwards, and they deal with it the way they think they're supposed to deal with it. The way you're supposed to deal with it is like, that just happened right here. We're all just people. So I think that's the best culture. And then competitiveness. You know, I mean, I think it's the competitiveness. One of the benefits of the software was like, we knew early on, like we wanted to be able to hire like a bartender or, you know, everybody wants an athlete. You know, we wanted to be able to hire people that had no business in construction whatsoever. Yeah. So we needed to give them tools that made it better customer experience. Because while they were great customer service representatives, they were terrible at being buttoned up, diligent, detailed contracts, you know, and they would overpromise and underdeliver, right? And they would overstate, and they would, you know, so that was one of the driving forces behind the software was our sales guys are great, but the contracts are a mess. So then the experience is a mess after that. So we really wanted to clean that up.
So how important is it to be competitive, just in general with everything?
I think it drives everything. You don't have to do it. But it depends, like if you're going to use the word mastermind, you know, I think most masters are pretty competitive. You know, it's not necessary. You can build yourself a nice little lifestyle business and you don't have to like, you know, you don't have to read the news. You don't have to be on LinkedIn seeing all the other guys. Yep. You don't have to go to the conferences with GAF and OC and watch other guys go up on stage and get awards. You just tune all that out and you run your business. You do it for the money it pays you. And you use that money to fund your life and feed your family and do all the things that make you happy, and that's fine. But I think like when you're scaling, I think competitiveness has gone up with social media. You know, I mean, you're so exposed to it. Like, you know, I mean, social media takes ordinary things. This is a Patrick Fingles quote. Social media takes ordinary things, and turns them into extraordinary things. You get duped all the time. Like something that's pretty ordinary, all of a sudden it's extraordinary.
Give me an example.
A YouTuber that rented a jet that's not even off the ground, that's standing there going, yeah, true. And then you're another teenager, and now you're like, shit, this guy's got a jet. I got to have a jet. Like that's a simple example of it. Yeah. And he doesn't have a jet. He paid $2,000 for 1 hour on the jet to make you think he has a jet. You know, and the jet doesn't even have a nose on it. It doesn't have wings. It's just a capsule, right? And so like that's like, so there's, if you think about that, like that's constant. Perception. I watch so much Grant Cardone and I see these guys. Like there's one guy that's like, you know, you got one guy saying S&P 500 steady Eddie. You got another guy's like real estate. You invest in the S&P, you're an idiot. So it like, you know, you got people now saying you shouldn't even fund your IRAs. Like if you take it all and you glue all the subject matter experts together, it's like every one of them disagrees with every other one of them. So that's like, it takes ordinary men and ordinary people that aren't doing extraordinary things and it makes them feel very extraordinary. Here's the other side of it. It takes extraordinary and it makes it very ordinary. I tell my team this. I'm like, I think Leap is extraordinary. What we've accomplished is extraordinary. At New Look, what we accomplished was extraordinary. It's not easy to build a $40 million roofing company. It's not easy to build a $500 million software company. It's not easy. It's extraordinary. But when you look at it in the ethos of LinkedIn, like we're this big. We're this big. So like I think that you have to keep like your eye on the prize. Yeah. But like when it all comes down to competitiveness. So I think our world is even more competitive now than it was. I think it's more competitive now than it ever has been. And I think that's because of the social media. But like I try to tune it out a little bit, but it's hard, because you get exposed to everything. Like you didn't get to see guys like unless you read the paper or you watched the news or something like that, you didn't have 1,000 influencers in your face every single day telling you how you should be making money, how you should be living, what you should be doing, what you should be eating, how you should be exercising. So that's a lot of content forced onto society. So I think it's I think it's a more competitive time. But if you want to grow and scale, you have to take it in pieces. But forget about what everybody tells you to do. You just have to wake up and you just have to have a competitive mindset. You have to, even if you're just beating yourself. We did 5 million last year. I want to do 2. I like employee count. Like I probably overhired at times just because I would rather have more head count. Because I felt greater. Nobody knew what the EBITDA was. Like nobody knew how much profit the business made. Like I could make $1 million and have 150 employees, or I could make $500,000 and have 200 employees. I felt better saying I got 200 employees. Like when we got to like 190, I was like, we got to get to 200. When we got to 29 million, I was like, we got to get to 30 million. Like it was a race against one. I was just competing against myself. And so I think that's great. Just compete against yourself and try to raise your bar every year.
And not just in business, but in other aspects of life as well. You're competitive. Like sports, or let's say, hey, let's.
I wouldn't say I'm competitive. I would say there's a difference. I'm not. This is not like I'm dominant to a fault. Like, hey, hon, where do you want to go for dinner? Well, wherever you want to go. I don't care where we go. Where do you want to go? Let's go to Grill 620. I don't know if I want to go to Grill 620. Like, saying next thing you know, we're going where I want to go. It's like that passive aggressive. So I'm not like I don't have time for sports, right? Like I'm not super competitive, but I think I'm competitive when it comes to my kids. Like when my kids go and play sports, I'm like I want them to be the best.
For sure.
And then I think it's like I'm a patriarch, I guess you would call it. Like like in my friend group and in my family group. And I'm trying to see through that. I do believe like if you're a CEO out there, I learned about this thing called being, and like people typically have a center of being. It's like, this is who I am. This is my makeup. Well, you're supposed to have multiple beings because like your wife doesn't want you to CEO her. It doesn't work well. So like when you're working, you're like a problem solver, you're solutioning. That's what I always say. I'm a solutioner. Instantaneously, you tell me, come to me, man, crying, you're getting divorced, whatever's going on. I'll be like, all right, here's what we're going to do, man. We'll get you a new car. You know what I'm saying? We're going to get you a nice apartment, man. Nice apartment. Like, I'm going to live vicariously through you, man. Like, and you're like, I just want to suffer and like not get on Tinder. I'm like, hey, we're getting you on Tinder. And so I'm a solutioner, and I forget that you don't always have to be that. So that's what I would say.
So I got a 2-part question. One, touching base on, you mentioned your wife. How important is having a partner in the trajectory of everything with your business? Has it helped?
Yes. It has helped. Then there's been times when my wife wouldn't bring me a single problem, even if it was a crisis, because she knew how bad things were at work. So it like ebbs and flows. Nobody just goes up and up and up and up. I mean, you go up and then you go down and you go up and you go down. I mean, I can't tell you about crises. Man, I was 14 months past due on my mortgage at one point.
Really?
14 months.
So you've been broke before?
I've been broke. Yeah, it was 2008, man. It was tough. We were killing it. We were 10 million at that time. We went to 3.
Wow. What was your mindset at that time when you went to that? Just overcome it, find a way?
No, it wasn't. There was a range of emotions.
Yeah.
It was like I can always, like, in the back of my mind, I was like, I can always go sell and make $250,000. At the time, you made $250. Now the number one guys make like $500 and stuff like that. True. Like they're killing it, like $1 million.
Yeah.
But at the time, if you made $250 in sales, you were a top 1% earner. But no, there was doubt. There was sadness, sorrow, grief. Then there was periods of inspiration and I had a community around me, I had a partner, I had a CFO and an executive, I had an accountant, I had a wife, I had a cousin that was a successful business owner, and you just keep talking it through. And I don't know if there was like a clear decision point. I think I kind of just moved forward.
Kept pushing.
Just keep moving forward, and so I kept moving forward. I didn't just punch through everything. I think that's fake. That's one of those things where it takes extraordinary and makes it ordinary, or ordinary makes it extraordinary. Like people are like, you got to get up like blah, 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 every single day. It's like, no, I mean, you do. You get up and you move forward. But some days it's tough to move forward with your chin up. It just is. You know, I mean, man, we had people fall off the roof.
Sure.
You know, I mean, we had people fall through the roof.
Wow.
You know, we had banks go out of business that we had installed projects for that we weren't paid on yet. You know, and you just get a lump in your throat when that happens, man.
So quick question for you. So let's say I'm an entrepreneur, that could be home service or any sort of industry. So I perfected the brand, the authenticity and transparency behind the brand. In terms of what we're doing, the product and service is great. Now, in this case with you for the home service business and the technology business, as you're growing, you're able to obtain more and more clients. What's kind of that secret sauce to generate and get your brand out there for anyone that's starting up?
It's very different, man. Like, and it's a changing environment right now. It really is. It's tough to be a contractor right now, especially if you're retail. I think because, you know, I mean, like Google, like, so first and foremost, the number one. Do you know the number one way a homeowner or a consumer finds their contractor?
Google. No. I would say Google or YouTube. That'd be my top two guesses.
Number one way is referral.
Okay. Nice.
Okay. Number one way you find a contractor is because you know somebody knows somebody that used them.
Wow.
And that's been that way since the dawn of time. Referral has ranked number one overall. Now that doesn't mean that every business their number one way is. It surely wasn't ours. Like 5% of our revenue came from referrals. It was nothing. But like holistically, yeah, it's referrals. That's going to change for the first time in history. And I think that's going to get displaced by AI. Because I think like I don't know if you use AI a lot, but like I trust it implicitly. I came here, I'm in Houston with you today, and whenever I come to town, I always want to try to find like the best restaurant to eat at. I didn't use Google for that. I used ChatGPT, and I asked ChatGPT, I said, hey, what are the two kind of cuisines? And I know it's steak, but steak is kind of a blanket. Don't kill me, Texas, but steak is kind of a blanket. Like, you know, you can go to Peter Luger's in New York, you can go Gina Giorgetti's in Chicago. Like a beautiful steak is a beautiful steak, right? So Tex-Mex.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Tex-Mex and brisket, right? Like and barbecue. So I said to ChatGPT, I was like, you know, give me a few options for Tex-Mex and barbecue that are renowned and very cultural, you know. So it gave me a few, and then I said narrow that down to one for each one. And so in my Uber on the way here, I said, the guy's like, hey man, are you kind of a foodie? He's like, yeah, I know everything you need to know, man. And I said, what is the number one place that you would go for Tex-Mex, like most historic and legit? He rattled off three. ChatGPT had given me two of them in my 3-person list, and the number one he said is the one that he told is the one that ChatGPT picked for me. Same, I swear, same thing.
I believe you.
Same thing on the
barbecue. What was it? I'm curious.
Same thing on the barbecue.
El Tiempo?
What is it?
El Tiempo or Ninfas? It has to be one of those two.
It is. I'm gonna tell you right now. It's ChatGPT.
It has to be one.
I got it. I already got it. Tex-Mex. Nifa's on navigation.
Yeah. There you go. 2 for 2.
And so for Nifa's, it gave me like, dude, it gave me the other things. It gave me and then for like for barbecue, it gave me like originally it gave me Truth's, the Pit Room.
Pit Room's good.
Killian's, and then the number one it gave me, and I did say within a proximity to where I am, it gave me the Pit Room. So for barbecue, it said the Pit Room, and for Tex-Mex, it said Nifa's on navigation. And so I asked the guy, and he was like, that's unbelievable. So I'm talking to a man, and think about that, all the cabs that back in the day, you went into a city, your cab driver was your tour guide, baby. And so like now you go here, so I don't need to ask for those recommendations. And I think like as agents start to come out, I think that'll get displaced. So people will say, you know, what roofer should I hire? And it'll just tell them.
So as things are changing, technology, everything's adapting, how do you become adaptable in those scenarios yourself? Are you one that's kind of like, because there's some people that are scared of AI. I embrace it. I love change. How do you handle that?
Well, I got a whole speech on that, like how do we brace for it, because it's called agentic software. So like agentic is like agent readiness, because like you're going to use your agent. Like you're not going to like, you're going to go and like, you're not going to go into DoorDash and order food. You're just going to say, hey, bring us Chick-fil-A. Like we want a number 1, a number 2, and number 3. Wow. And then like your Siri or whatever will go into DoorDash and order that for you, right? Like you're not going to have to do that. You're not going to say like Uber or Lyft. You're just going to say, I need to be picked up. I mean, door 120, gate B, right? Like, and it's just going to come. They're going to come get you, right? So like I think like so that's an agent. An agent is going to be like your AI assistant that helps you do everything. Well, it's going to help you find your roofer too. It's going to help you find your window guy. So you know, what is it going to do when it goes out there? Like, it's using the World Wide Web. That's what its brain is, the World Wide Web, right? If it's not online, it's not. It doesn't have access to it. It doesn't know it. So you have to make sure that your systems are set up in a way to where you're starting to be able to speak to an AI. So like, you know, if you're, let's say you're a roofing company, let's say I can't schedule an appointment with you online.
Yeah.
That's step number one. You're out.
Facts.
Because your competitors can.
Yep.
You know, let's say, you know, you got companies that give roof quotes online now. And let's just say like, you're not one of them. Okay, well, you're out. Because that agent is going to look for those things because it wants to return you the most precise result. So, you know, that's what you have to be doing and prepared for. But I do think, like, first of all, I never want to scare tactic anybody. I think that's farther away than we think it is, but I think you can take baby steps towards it. And I think doing those things just make you run a better business anyway.
100%.
Right? And then the other thing is I think, like, grassroots is going to come back a little bit because, like, I mean, you see it in TV. Like, our TV results went like this. And we tried to do streaming. We would try to like advertise on like HBO, Prime and all that stuff, and it just never got an ROI. And like same thing with radio. Like back in the day, like, you know, WTOP is like, we killed it in DC on WTOP. And then we started getting like some Pandora and stuff when it first came out, and like some Siri like ads and stuff like that. Not Siri.
Sirius
XM. And like they would not perform at all. Even though they were supposed to be more targeted, they just didn't perform for us. So as we saw like terrestrial television and radio start to transition, we started going back to grassroots, and we're like, all right, let's grow the canvassing team because that was predictable. So like I'm seeing companies start to do that. They're leaning back into call centers. They're leaning back into canvassers. They're leaning back into trade shows and community events where they don't have to compete in this kind of like, you know, it's kind of like broadcast marketing, you know? You know, Facebook, like you think that's where you would go, but like it's still impression share. Like, and like it's hard to be a roofer and create impression share on a customer that might use your product in the next 50 years. Like, it's not like you're a nail salon where like if I hit you enough times, you're gonna come and you're gonna come and you're gonna come, and then I have a customer for life. Like the problem with our products are people buy them once. Like if you have 100 people in a room and you say, raise your hand if you've ever replaced a roof. And let's just say all these people are at the age 50. Like 20 hands go up. So imagine having to pay to advertise to all those people for their adult life, call it 30 through 50. So you've advertised for 20 years to all of them to teach you that you're XYZ and you do roofing. So that 20 of the 100 might buy your product because they're getting impressions by other people too. So it's very like need-based marketing. So it's like, you know, I heard this thing the other day. You know, when in the roofing company, I would hire somebody and they'd be like, it's the craziest thing, man. Since I started working here, I heard your ad like I've heard our ad like 20 times. And I'd be like, you know, you've heard our ad 1,000 times. You just never listened before.
That's a good point.
You know what I'm saying? So like when people need our products and services, like you don't listen to window ads on the off chance that you might need windows 20 years from now.
That's true.
If you don't need windows, you just literally tune it out.
Fact.
You know? So that's like that reactive marketing, right? Like, so it's like you have to be in front of the people that wake up that day that's like, we got to replace these windows. And they start looking around in the world. That's why Google's been so big. But the problem is, I think Google will get crushed by AI. Really? I don't use Google anymore. So it's just one person. But trust me, there's more of me's. Like I don't use Google because Google's too suggestive. AI, ChatGPT returns a result. You know, like where do I eat? ChatGPT gives me an answer. Google takes me to a Yelp page.
Yeah, and it's pay to play too, huh?
Yeah, and it's pay to play. They sold their souls.
Absolutely.
You know, so you know, like I said, so I think it's a tough time. I think it's a tough time, but I think a lot of people, what I'm seeing is a lot of grassroots, right? People are still doing go watch the news in the morning, local, like terrestrial television news, not streaming. Every commercial is a one-day bath, a roofer, and HVAC, electric, plumbing, heating and air, right? or like a kitchen refacer, right? Like it's like on loop. Contractors are like
true.
their
Very
number
true.
one advertiser, you know?
Yeah.
So obviously that still works, or people would totally stop doing it. But I think the ROIs are getting pretty tight. You're seeing marketing costs go up and up and up and up.
Absolutely. I think we could do a whole part 2 on just these conversations and
Yeah.
stuff. I know we're running a little bit on time now,
Yeah,
but
we're long. I'm always long in it.
no, you're good, man. So for an upcoming entrepreneur, what would you say, kind of give a closing statement to someone that's upcoming, looking to be pretty much what you became or looking to aspire to be, to take their business to that level? What would you say to them?
So one thing, I had to operate off of real world experiences. There's a book, it's called Atomic Habits.
Atomic Habits.
Okay, it's a great book. And I think a lot of people, like Atomic Habits teaches you, it's just as it sounds, it's an atomic habit, meaning we do something and we make it atomic, and it's like we do it that way.
Yeah.
I knew that you could knock on doors, you could get a lead, and you could sell windows. So I knew who could do that job successfully, like a college kid or a high school kid, and I knew who could sell that job. And I had atomic habits in that, and I did it. I couldn't imagine trying to start a business today with so much outside influence, because look, man, leads make the world go round.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody's ever, like, you can have a cheeseburger joint that sells the worst cheeseburgers in the world, but if the line is down the sidewalk, they got no problems, man.
For sure.
You know?
Yep.
So like, I've never seen somebody go out of business and they're like, well, we had so many leads, but we just couldn't service them. It's like, no, it's like you don't have the leads. So leads is everything. You have to get leads. You have to fight for them. And I would say start with one thing and do that thing well. We screwed up 1,000 times with this. Case in point, we were a canvassing company. We closed canvas leads at 30%. Our guys would close them at 30%. We started getting, we have sometimes in some months we close them at 40%. We started getting radio leads and television leads. We closed television leads at 50%. Radio leads went down to 20%. Then they went down to 15%. Then they went down to 10%. Because you give a sales guy 3 leads, 2 of them are radio and 1 of them's canvassed. Like the radio inbound leads were so easy to sell and close. That canvas leads, like, I'm not going to fight the fight for that thing. I'll pitch miss that, you know?
Yeah.
So I got 2 leads on a Saturday. One's canvas and one's internet.
Yeah.
I'm selling the internet, like, you know? And like, there's 1,000 people that disagree and say the canvas lead's better. I hear you. I agree with that. But like, it's the problem is you gave them both. So we, like, our canvassing took a nosedive, because we introduced new lead sources. So like, an atomic habit would have been like, we're going to bifurcate sales team. We're not going to give you both. These guys run canvas leads. These guys run radio and television leads, because as soon as I intermingle those 2 things, these guys aren't going to sell the 2.
Yep.
Now we did get to a place where we were successful at both, but like that was like one of those times where we went down, and I was like, man, everything cool we did is just add these radio leads. We just gave back in not selling canvas leads. So that's like the atomic habit of it. It's like, pick what you want, one product. Chad Castrelli's a great speaker. He stood up on stage at Top 500. He's like, raise your hand if you've ever stopped selling a product. And like, I think 1 hand in the whole group went up. And he was like, when I started here, we were selling this, 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 and this. I killed all 3 of these products.
Wow.
Because we weren't ready for that. It doesn't mean only sell one product, but it just means like, let's get this one going. Steady Eddie, then let's add this one, right? And look, remember earlier I said things don't have to be perfect.
Yep, true.
But like, you gotta, they can't be in a total state of crisis either. So like, I would say try not to do too many things. Find your one thing, make it an atomic habit, build on that, and when you layer in another thing, do it in a silo, test it, prove it, and then pull them together. That's why I like Greenfield, because it's in a silo. It's over here. Like, we have this is working, this is good. Let's go try something over here, because the only other thing you're going to do is poke this bear.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go hire 15 more salespeople, and we're going to make them canvas. And they're like, oh, we did that. Guess what? They hate canvassing. And now the other guys are bitching because now they got to split the leads, and they're not getting enough leads. And now we took a perfect harmonious situation, and we screwed it.
ruined it.
Because we wanted to grow, and we tried to force growth this way. I think that's what I like about Greenfield is you can experiment over here. And that goes back to your original question. People are like, how do you create the redundancy? Like, we want to replicate. It's like, no, you don't need to totally replicate. That's the whole fun in it. You know, is that you can have some individuality
Beautiful.
from market to market.
Beautifully said, brother.
Thanks, man.
I appreciate it, man. The knowledge has been absolutely incredible. I could do honestly a part 2. This is awesome. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you guys in the next one.